Hey guys, Desolate Magic here, and it's about time I hit up the second batch of delicious lore nuggets that they ordered up for all of us with some delicious honey mustard on the side. These are, of course, from Commander Legends. So let's start with Abomination of Llanowar. They say, deep within the heart of the Llanowar forest lay a dark, twisted morass of necromantic magic. Oh, I assume they're talking about the DNC headquarters. Festering for centuries, it grew inward like a black hole of evil energy. It was eventually discovered by a Llanowar scout troop. A curious new recruit touched the dark tangle, and it imploded, sucking in the elves and fusing them into an undead monstrosity. The second scout troop, sent to locate the first, didn't understand what they found until it was upon them. The monstrosity lunged at the elves with deceptive speed, pulling them, still alive, into the horrifying mass that made up its body. A single elf escaped, and that seriously sounds like a campfire story, but okay. And now that part of the forest was declared forbidden. While no sightings have been reported of the creature in many years, the tale of the Abomination of Llanowar remains a popular story around elven campfires. Oh my gosh, I knew it. They actually went there. I didn't read any of these ahead of time, but the whole, evil and years and then one survivor to tell the story, that was such a campfire story. So honestly, we don't know if this really exists. I mean, it might not. So next up we got AC, Tyrant of Gyre Strait. So on a distant ocean-covered plain. Wait, isn't Gyre Strait like literally a proper noun? Like that's a name of a place on a specific plain? But no, on a faraway plain, a mystery ocean-covered plain where monstrous creatures rule the seas. One in particular stands out in terms of temper and capriciousness. AC, an ancient sea serpent who claims the waters and all adjacent land masses, even though they said it was an ocean-covered plain, of the Gyre Strait as its domain. Fickle and unpredictable, AC has little patience for trespassers, aquatic or otherwise. The only way to appease AC is to give offerings and tribute, just like that last giant one we read about. Wow, just recycle that idea. But even that's not a sure solution. It's been known to take the offerings and attack anyway if it feels like it. So I've got an idea, somebody kill it. I can't believe they put so many inconsistencies and plot holes into one paragraph. That's amazing. Next up, we got a Chroma, which, I mean, come on, everybody knows who that is. But they say when the illusionist Ixidor's greatest love, Nivea, was slain in a pit fight with Phage the Untouchable. Yeah, don't fight Phage. Ixidor's grief caused his powers to increase immeasurably. He could turn his dreams into reality. He could even create living creatures. Ixidor's greatest creation was a Chroma, a battle angel made in Nivea's image to avenge her death by killing Phage. Just as an aside with what I know about the lore, I'm pretty sure she failed. Then when Ixidor was swallowed by a tremendous death worm, boy, that family's got all the luck, a Chroma didn't hesitate. Diving down into the monster's gullet, she waded through its digestive juices to reach her creator. Ixidor bade her to leave him, and a Chroma's followers replaced her ruined legs with metal lances. Neat. I mean, she's pretty handy capable already because, she can fly. In the end, a Chroma and Phage and the mule skinner Zagora, whoever that is, died at the same moment, slain by Kamal's axe stroke, combining them together into the form of Corona, the false god. And then Kamal ended up killing Phage anyway, so, yeah. They kind of ended this early, and then they were later, killed or stabbed or something happened, and then they separated into the three again. But I thought like two of them died, one survived the unmending, I don't know, or melding, I should say. Next up, we got body painting champion of the century, Alharu, solemn ritualist. The dead cry out, and Alharu listens, also known as schizophrenia. From a young age, they were always able to hear the voices of the deceased. As a child, this was terrifying. Alharu cooped themselves up inside their home, trying to ignore the spirit's posthumous pleas. As time passed, Alharu realized that the spirits weren't going anywhere. They meant no one harm and only wished to pass on. To which Alharu reminded them, y'all gonna stay here, you better pay some rent. And then did some Orzhov gang signs. So apparently Alharu's like, okay, well, I'm gonna study this or whatever and become an ancient spirit queller, whatever that is. So I don't care what they say in the lore, that's a female. She painstakingly taught herself every ritual, carved spirit runes into her flesh to better attune to the departed. That's what you need, crank up the volume. Sat and listened to the pleas of the dead, and after many years, countless years, Alharu had become a master ritualist. She now seeks out the spirits of the dead and help them find peace. Isn't it easier to just dispel them And then that'll force them to cross over. None of this, oh, you gotta go find my body and my watch and my daughter. I'll be like, haha, go to the afterlife, bitch. Bye. Turn undead, vaporized. So next up, we've got Anara, Wolvid Familiar. The last thing a hunter wants is to be outdone by their familiar, but if you team up with Anara, that's exactly what you'll get. If you can swallow your pride and accept her help, you'll find yourself with a bounty of slain beasts and your enemies dead before you. All she wants in return is a cut to return to her den, someone to have her back in combat, and the occasional scratches around the antlers. So in other words, antlered mega pupper. So next up we got Arumi or something like that of the Dead Tide. Royalty of a small merfolk kingdom. I'm just going to call her Roomba. Roomba always dreamed of something more. She ran away from home and flagged down a passing ship. Once aboard, she was greeted warmly by the humans crewing it. They told her incredible stories of the outside world, and she regaled them with tales of the splendor of her kingdom. Tragically, the humans on board the ship were actually pirates. Saw that one coming. So they subdued Roomba and changed course for the Merfolk Kingdom. When Roomba came to, she found her home in ruins being looted by the pirates. It was then that her substantial magic activated, dragging the pirates to their doom and reanimating them as undead thralls. Roomba now waits beneath the waves, delivering the same fate to every pirate ship that passes. What a racist bitch. Just because some humans are bad doesn't mean all humans are bad. Finally, we're moving on to Archaeologist, the greatest character in the entire set, the Lagoon Mystic. So this turtle folk shaman, that's right, you know turtles are the best tribal in the game. Archaeologist, I'm going to say Archaeologist, that sounds more correct, has lived a very long time. So long, in fact, he forgot his own age centuries ago. He spends much of his time meditating in his shell, spreading his considerable magic across the marsh he calls home, feeling and understanding each and every aspect of nature. So, mega ultra turbo hippie. His magic power is so immense that one finds themselves drawn into Archaeologist's pace. Ask a simple yes or no question, and you'll find that an hour has passed without you noticing, and you still haven't received an answer. Only one being, a pesky rabbit folk, has been able to resist this magic. While Archaeologist finds the rabbit folk's interruptions irritating, he knows he was an ancient when the rabbit was born, and will be older still when the rabbit rejoins the earth. So they ripped off the tortoise and the hare. Anyway, next up we got Ardenn, Intrepid Archaeologist. This is another one of them line-slinging core lunatics. When the skyclaves of Zendikar rose once again, many of them had previously been destroyed. Yeah, all of them, actually. Not just many of them. It was all of them. Boy, whoever wrote this isn't that familiar with the lore. It's kind of sad that neither am I, but I knew that. While the entirety of the runes took to the sky, broken off chunks did not necessarily reattach. This resulted in free-floating structures out of reach of the average adventurer. While Zendikar is rife with talented line slingers, few were interested in risking their lives to access these obscure runes. Not when the more accessible skyclaves were filled with their own treasure. But dangerous unexplored ruins were exactly what Ardenn was looking for. As an archaeologist focused on ancient core artifacts, the skyclaves were his dreams come true. He had no interest pursuing the beaten path and put his line-slinging skills to the test to explore the free-floating fragments. So far, the expeditions have been successful. Ardenn has discovered forgotten secrets from Zendikar's history and mysterious artifacts he has only just begun to understand. Neato, you should sell some. Next up, it's Armix, the Filigree Thrasher. After the Conflux merged the shards of Alara into a single plane, Esper's new neighbors were less than friendly. Good, because Esper's a bunch of dicks. All three major control-y colors, yeah, screw you. After centuries without the materials to create new Ethereum, the people of Esper were desperate to find the means to make more so the noble work could continue. Was that pissing everybody off? Is that the noble work Esper's doing? Among those people was a human researcher, Brea. She led an expedition into Jund and returned with Karmat, the red stone that was the key ingredient Esper had been missing. To test her hypothesis, she created Armix, an experimental golem made entirely of brand new Ethereum. Fantastic idea. By most metrics, Armix was a great success. After time had passed, however, Armix became violent and unpredictable. The new Ethereum contained a wild power previously unseen on Esper, whose own Ethereum supply had been refined and attenuated for ages. When Armix was still loyal and followed orders, it carried out its instructions in a brutal and reckless manner. Brea was pleased with the results, however, and decided it was time for her own noble work to begin. And everybody still hates Esper to this day. Next up, it's Averna, the Chaos Bloom. One of these will eventually not start with an A. While most elemental kin are comprised solely of a single element, Averna draws strength from 3, because that's what commander players requested. Created in the aftermath of a plane-shaking mana quake, which, what the heck is that? And also it sounds delicious. Averna is the only one of its kind. Its multiple affinities give it an enhanced connection to nature, detecting even the slightest shifts in the natural order of the plane it calls home. Averna is something new among elemental kin, and only time will tell what sort of legacy it leaves behind. That is like the weakest, most generic explanation. I don't know, a mana quake happened and Averna exists. It's magic. I ain't gonna explain nothing. We made it for Commander. See, that's all they had to write. One line. We made it for Commander. Next up, we got Bell Borca, aka Bork, Spectral Sergeant. Bell Bork didn't ask to be Agras Kos's partner. Okay. Sure, these days, Kos is regarded as one of the greatest heroes in the history of Ravnica, but in those days, he was a washed-up has-been that an understaffed Boros Legion wouldn't let retire. And who didn't treat his rookie partner very well. Bell Bork didn't ask to be blown up by an assassin's bomb, but he was hardly the only one. Bell Bork did sign an Orzhov life insurance contract that brought, oh my god, that's a thing? That brought him back as a ghost to seek justice for his death, much to the chagrin of his partner Agrus. Oh, Agras is Agras Kos, by the way. That was all too typical of death on Ravnica, especially in those days when the souls of the departed couldn't escape from the realm of the living. Bell Bork didn't ask to be the only Wojek, whatever that is, to solve his own murder, but he did, and it's in his service record. So my takeaway from that is Orzhov sells life insurance policies, very literally. Next up, we got Captain Vargas Wrath, who makes Gaddafi look like he doesn't care about style. So Captain Vargas here is perhaps the most brazen member of the Brazen Coalition. Well, that's fitting. As an unaffiliated pirate with his own ship, Vargas had the audacity to assault the Spitfire Bastion, a heavily defended pirate fortress. Oh, that's a good way to get all the pirates on your side. I mean, there's unaffiliated, and then there's, okay, this guy's dumb. His attack was quickly routed by Captain Ripley Vance. And Vargas was brought before him for execution. Surprising everyone, Vance offered Vargas a new ship and a place in the Coalition. Vance believed that any pirate with the guts to attack the Bastion would make a fine ally. No, he's kind of an idiot, kind of tactically mental. Okay, Vargas now serves as one of Vance's most trusted captains. Boy, they're both idiots, eagerly smashing and sinking those who would move against him. And I'm sure he uses great tactics and chooses his targets wisely. But next up, we got Dargo, the shipwrecker, the giant pirate. When Dargo requested to join the notorious pirate crew, the captain immediately declined. "You're too big," he was told. "The ship can't hold you." Dargo had a dream, however, and would not be discouraged. Is this exactly what you guys were picturing in your mind when you saw this card? Because it's exactly what I was picturing. He proved his devotion by tearing the figurehead off the ship's prow? I assume that's a thing, and ripping its head off. The captain, who didn't feel like getting crushed by a giant on that day, welcomed Dargo aboard. The voyage went as poorly as the captain predicted. The ship encountered a storm and the deck buckled under Dargo's immense weight before quickly giving way, splitting the boat in two. Dargo waded over to a nearby island to wait for the other survivors, but none came. He is still waiting for rescue to this day, even though several passing ships have already attempted to save him and sank in the process. So I think the takeaway from this is, don't let your dreams be dreams. Just do it. Hashtag healthy at any size, which is equally bullshit. Next up, we got Essior, Ward-Wing Familiar, which looks way too much like a bat and still freaks me out. Essior is the ideal familiar. Need to get somewhere? Essior will fly you there. I doubt it, he doesn't look big enough. Try to cast a spell? Essior will help channel your magic. Looking to confide in someone? Essior is a great listener. Indeed, any wizard would be thrilled to head into battle with Essior by their side, but if you wish to borrow her strength, there is something you must understand. To Essior, you're her familiar. What is this with, like, the familiars are more powerful than the wizards? This is like the third time we heard that. Hey, speaking of that, we've got Falthus, Shadowcat familiar. To call all black cats bad luck is a gross exaggeration. That being said, if you summon Falthus as your familiar, you might want to watch your back. It's not like she doesn't have her perks. While Falthus With Felthis by your side, dark magic will multiply in power and weaker foes are nowhere to be found. However, Felthis' connection to the corrupting forces is so great that it tends to physically manifest on her current master. But as long as you're okay with a few malignant mutations, you'll find yourself partnered with a very cute kitty. That's why, you don't turn to the dark side, even if they do have cookies. I suggest everybody turn to the dank side, because we got memes. So next up we got Gen, Arcana Weaver. Spells are tricky things, each an interlocking puzzle woven from imperceptible mana. Unless you're Nissa, then you can perceive the mana. Imperceptible to everyone but Gen, that is. And Nissa. Gen can see the strands of mana that make up an enchantment, and more importantly, can take them apart and reweave them into his own creations. While his powers are great, humility is not among them. He has been known to snatch someone's spell out of the air and reweave it in front of them. While this behavior doesn't necessarily make friends, none can deny that the end result is vastly superior. Hey, if he wants to make some upgrades, more power to him. Next up, it's Galandra, Caller of the Wirewood. Galandra was an elf native to the Wirewood Forest, located on the continent of Otaria. When the Phyrexian invasion devastated much of Dominaria, many elves lost their families and homes. Good, the elves are terrible. Upon hearing of the misfortune that befell his elven kin, he said, "Good, they deserved it. Just kidding, I wish." Galandra instead went on a journey. He traveled the world, spreading the word that the Wirewood had plenty of room for new residents. When the immigrants arrived, Galandra made it his mission to personally welcome each and every elf to the forest. It was said by many that meeting Galandra made the forest truly feel like home. Well, isn't that sweet? Couldn't he have just sent like a carrier pigeon or something? That seems like a druid thing. Here, 1,000 pigeons with a little scroll on their leg. Come to my forest. 10% off all drinks on Fridays. Buy one, get one free wings all weekend. And the elves are like, all right, let's move there. Next up, Glacian, Powerstone engineer, who really looks like George Clooney. During the time of the ancient Thran Empire, which they made some mistakes, Glacian was hailed as a genius for discovering how to create Power Stones, crystals that contain vast amounts of energy. The Thran used Power Stones to fuel their entire artificer empire. Ironically, he was killed by his own creation. The evil physician Yawgmoth, which they should have stopped immediately, implanted 2 halves of a broken Power Stone inside Glacian's body. That leached away his life force. His wife, Rebek, oh god, that's who it is, used the 2 stones to seal the gateway to Phyrexia, but they were discovered millennia later by the brothers Urza and Mishra, who dubbed them the Might Stone and the Weak Stone. Which one do you think was more powerful, guys? So Glacian's inventions were the basis for Urza and Mishra's artifacts used to fight the Brothers' War, and all Phyrexian artifice is also derived from Glacian's experiments, so everybody from Thran done screwed up. Next up, we got Nostro, aka Chimpy, voice of the Craigs. He's a chimera. If you find yourself wandering the mountains of Theros, which obviously I do all the time, and you hear a cacophony of voices, it is highly recommended that you run as fast as you can. Those voices likely belong to Nosto, aka Chimpy, a 3-headed chimera that considers the entirety of the Catacton, I don't know, mountains its hunting grounds. Each head takes on the appearance of a different animal and has its own ability. Yep, that's how chimeras work. The owl head lets out a bone-chilling hoot that reverberates throughout time, allowing Nostro to glimpse the future movements of its prey. The howls and snarls of the wolf head bring forth fire that can melt even the strongest Acroan steel, and the whinnies and snorts of the horse head are just it quoting memes endlessly. This advanced level of memery contains the power to heal any wound. Anyone able to get close enough to test it has been torn to shreds by the other 2 heads. Well, then how do you know it has healing memes? I see a logical fallacy here. Next up, we got Hansa, Guardian of Erishin. In Takir's original timeline, which got nuked, the Abzan houses were centered in the fortress city of Erishin. The city is protected by Mur-Ek Fortress, where the Khan of the Abzan holds court. Mur-Ek is considered impenetrable, but the Abzan know nothing is absolute. Should an enemy take Mur-Ek, nothing would stand in their way of taking Erishin. Nothing but Hamza. Hamza was a Krumar, an orphan raised by an influential Abzan family. He was always very strong, even for a Loxodon, and even though instead of Loxodon they threw elephant as a subtype, that's just rude. He knew he wanted to use his strength to repay the clan that had taken him in, so he joined the city guard when he came of age. Hamza quickly rose through the ranks, becoming the most decorated guard captain in the history of Arishan. He grew to command the guard and personally ensured that Arishan remained safe until Tarkir's history was rewritten, making it all completely and utterly meaningless. So, hey, I mean, he seems like a good commander just from a lore standpoint, just saying. Next up, Hans Eriksson, which apparently there's like a huge lore behind him that I'm not familiar with, but we'll see what they wrote. Life's pleasures can be found anywhere if one only has the awareness to see them. Even in Balduvia, in the grip of the Great Ice Age, there is beauty to be appreciated. The clear blue sky, the crunch of footsteps through freshly fallen snow, and the smell of wildflowers, which, if it's snowing out, I doubt it. By maintaining a state of perfect attunement with one's senses, one can derive great enjoyment from even the smallest things. Yes, a mindful stroll with one's beloved sister, Safi, is the perfect tonic for the petty vicissitudes, that can so trouble a young man's mind. So, they ain't gonna tell us anything except he's super metro. I heard he has something to do with the unhinged card, Akhan's Run, but that might be a coincidence. I'm kind of mad they didn't tell us really anything about him. So next up we got Iktektik Selvage Splicer. So Iktektik, am I even saying it right? Okay, he's getting a nickname, Icky. So Icky, whose name roughly translates to reap and give, prides himself on being Vorinclex's personal splicer. Vorinclex has taken great interest in Icky's mindless golems, believing that they have the potential to become the ultimate predator, or at least make some good test subjects for his own experiments. Icky has been given free reign to harvest any materials from Vorinclex's domain, including ones that may still be attached to living beings. He harvests parts liberally, grafting them onto both his golems and himself. So he's kind of like an engineer, but also a little messed up in the head. So kind of like an engineer. Next up, Des leaves to go put a pizza in the oven. Alright, one pizza/Pokemon Go trip and 3 YouTube outages later, let's continue. Isn't the magic of editing fun? So we've got Emoti's Celebrant of Bounty. Just pretend that I photoshopped a pizza into her top hands there. So Emoti's Naga tribe relied on a single river to provide them with water. Well, there's your problem. Tragically, a distant battle between unrelated parties resulted in the river becoming polluted by dark magic. I'm not convinced that there's not some dark magic in that river in India. That thing lit on fire twice. They're like, it's industrial pollutants, and then whoosh, water lights on fire. Water, guys. Water. So anyway, good news, everyone. Emoti is the only member of her tribe who possesses the blessing of the god of nature, and therefore she is the only one who can pass that blessing to the river, rendering it potable. To that end, she spends hours each day beneath the waterfall that flows into the river, constantly casting a purifying spell. The tribe tried to elevate her to leader, but she refused, knowing that there were others who were better suited to rule. She has instead dedicated her life to protecting the river and attempting to create a spell that could purify it for good. Good idea, because that job sounds awful. Next up, Jared Carthalion, True Heir, and this guy's crazy powerful. So the Carthalions are one of the oldest families in Dominaria. Okay, I was 99% sure from context that he was a character from Conspiracy, which takes place on, I don't know, starts with an F, Conspiracyville. Well, I guess not. So they could trace their ancestry back to the time of legends when their orphaned ancestor was dubbed Carth the Lion by Dakon Blackblade himself. Born with the crescent moon birthmark of the Elder Druid, which really sounds like some Skyrim stuff, Jared Carthalion seemed destined to attain great magical power. However, that destiny would not be achieved without great effort on Jared's part. His ancestral lands were usurped by the evil planeswalker Ravidel, who held Corindor hostage to a magical weapon of mass destruction. I assume they mean with. Otherwise, that doesn't make any sense. Jared was reduced to begging and thievery just to survive. Armed with his father's sword, Foe Cleaver, and a latent planeswalker spark of his own, Jared gathered allies from across Corindor to reclaim his birthright. Jared's feud with Ravidel eventually culminated in the cataclysmic event known as the Planeswalker War. Well, that all probably meant something to someone. I know just enough about that lore to know that it's very old, so it's before my time. Next up, we got Jury, Master of the Review. In the last few years, the Jury Review has gone from being an obscure discovery to one of the most influential cultural venues in the city of Ravnica. There's nothing cultural about those Rakdos freaks. They should all be locked up. So the performances at the review feature, I could read today, human, devil, and ogre performers that include real flame, spike, blades, and blood. The subject of the performances usually involves skewering the powerful, sometimes literally. The Azoria Senate, the Living Guild Pact, and God Emperor Nicobolus are frequent subjects of the review's satirical plays. Nice. Each performance ends with the murder of at least one audience member, which sends the survivors into paroxysms of excitement and horror. Yeah, how does Azorius not have a law against this? Jury himself is the charismatic master of ceremonies, wearing his signature crown of blades and gesturing with his flame whip for emphasis. He directs the frenetic action of his murderer performers and decides which acts will be performed on any given day. He has attracted the eye of Rakdos himself, who has attended several performances. Lord Rakdos' interests have increased the review's popularity in the short term, but it is known well that Rakdos does not tolerate being upstaged for long, and Jury may end up becoming the grand finale of his own act someday. Yep, you play with fire, you get burned. You lay down with dogs, you get up with fleas. You join the Rakdos Guild, you die, because they're all mentally unstable freaks. So next up we got Kange or Kange, I don't know, Sky Warden. During the time of the Phyrexian invasion of Dominaria, an Avan wizard, Kange, we'll go with, was an influential leader of the Northern Order in Otaria. I read that as Ontario. You know what? Let's go with that. With many soldiers obeying his commands and many apprentice mounties studying under his tutelage. Kange's Eyrie was based on the Skultan Mountains, where he kept many hawks which he used as his eyes to see what was happening within hundreds of miles. While the Phyrexian invasion didn't hit Ontario hard, the Phyrexians didn't consider the continent to be strategically important. Oh, that's rude. Kange and his followers felt duty-bound to fight against such a great threat to all of Dominaria. Kange led troops and hawks into combat in several major battles, downing Phyrexian troop carriers before they could disgorge their monstrous warriors. Pretty sure the word is disembark, but okay. So we got Quain, itinerant meddler. Okay, clearly we already know who this is, right? The rabbit folk Quain has many talents. He's a fast mover, a fast thinker, a fast talker. To him, the world moves in slow motion. He believes people spend far too much time making up their mind when they could just be doing. To that end, no one frustrates him more than the turtle folk Archaeologist. To Quain, Archaeologist represents everything he finds irritating, but still he finds himself drawn to the turtle, literally running circles around him trying to get any sort of reaction. Yeah, Quain does meth. Next up, we've got Lathiel, the Bounteous Dawn. Of all legends of the forest, none are as elusive as the unicorn Lathiel, probably because it doesn't exist. You're more likely to find a Samsquatch. The stories say that if you are in the forest on the right day at the exact liminal moment of dawn, okay, we're getting to some GTA 5 crap here, you have a chance to catch a glimpse of this magnificent beast. Those fortunate enough to actually encounter her feel empowered, their earthly concerns washed away by a warm wave of peacefulness. Yeah, that's magic escapism. You gotta go back to your life and solve your problems at a certain point, so just why don't you deal with your shit like an adult? Next up, Miara, Thorn of the Glade. Miara is a Dane, a packmaster of the exquisite caste on the plane of Lorwyn. She leads a hunting pack and has the esteemed privilege of being allowed to speak to elves of the perfect caste. While her skills as a deadly hunter and talented technician earned her the notice of elven leadership, it was her ruthless and thorough extermination of the eye blights that made her exquisite. Yeah, that's how societal castes usually work. Good job almost throwing shade at India. So apparently she's the most silent hunter on the plane, with Mirari's prey never seeing or hearing anything while she's approaching. Ooh, super spoopy elf ninja, I'm so scared. Next up we got Nadier, agent of the Duskenel. I don't know what any of that is, so this should be interesting. Historically speaking, the Duskenel nation of elves has had a tumultuous relationship with their wood elf neighbors. But times change, and recent leadership has decided elven solidarity far outweighs the petty tribal disagreements. You will never get the elves to work together. They are terrible people. To the average wood elf, Nadier appears to be a diplomat sent by the Duskenel as a cultural exchange resulting from a recent treaty between elven nations. He is kind and cordial and has quickly become a welcome face around the town. If you saw what he looked like on the card, you know that he don't look that friendly. In reality, Nadier's presence is a direct result of said treaty, but he is no diplomat. The wood elves have been experiencing some issues with nearby human settlements, expeditions going a little too deep in the woods, trees being felled and that have stood for centuries, and so forth. As such, the Duskenel offered Nadier's services not as a dignitary, but as the foremost killer in the entire nation. Secretly, Nadier has been tasked to train a battalion of wood elves to drive the humans away from the forest. Here's hoping the humans win. I hate elves. Next up, we've got Nevinrael finally on a card. In the time before the Ice Age, the Lich Nevinrael was the king of the city of Urborg. Oh, I didn't know that. A hellish metropolis whose laws were enforced by the use of powerful magical artifacts. Haha, hashtag defund the artifacts. Nevinrael's lust for power impelled him to send his undead armies to neighboring Bogarden, or however you say that, offending the mysterious entities who rule that volcanic island. Who wants to take over a ticking time bomb? I mean, seriously, when you look at what territory should we take over? Oh, is it good for farming? Could you raid livestock? How much lava is there? So Nevinrael's forces were destroyed, because duh, and the Bogardens counterattacked. Uh-oh. This literally happened at Elder Scrolls lore, by the way. They like sailed one boat over, they're like, hi, and then they're like, you know what? Counterattack. While Hellkites attacked from the air, Firemasters surrounded the city, pounding the ground with their metal gauntleted fists. The Bogarden Masters triggered a volcanic eruption in the middle of Urborg. Oh, that's how you know you're outclassed, Mr. Magic Boy. Mr. I'm a Lich. I studied magic for 300 years. Oh, did you now? Let me get you a complimentary cake. Oops, I summoned a volcano. Realizing that the city was lost and wanting to deny his enemies access to his trove of magical spells and artifacts, Nevinrael poured all his magic into his disc-shaped phylactery, detonating it and vaporizing everything within a 10-mile radius. Many Urborg Lich Lords claim to be Nevinrael's heir, but none of them have a tenth of that ancient necromancer's power. Ooh, he's so powerful, legendary, but on the other hand, volcano. So the message from this one is clearly, don't mess with them volcanoes. And everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Next up, Obeka, Brute Chronologist. Now this is just interesting right here. So Obeka will punch you into next week. Literally, an ogre mage who breaks the flow of time through brute force. I thought only the Juggernaut and I want to say Thor, but no, I don't think he's on the list. For sure, the Incredible Hulk were the only two that could do that. But also, Obeka's probably not in the MCU. Let's see, a right cross from her will knock your baby teeth right into your mouth. Nice, I like that. And her uppercut is so powerful, your mother will feel it 20 years ago. Ha ha ha. Obeka wants nothing more than to live an enjoyable life full of earthly pleasures and knockdown drag-out fights. Good and bad are of little interest to her, as her only concern is if something sounds fun. She lives exclusively for the moment, and if that moment goes south, she'll beat it out of existence. Nice. If you get in her way, consider your wish that you were never born granted. Dude, this like Hacker Man where he's like, I'm going to hack time. So next up we got Rayav, Master Smith. I think he was at least referenced in some cards and some artwork and stuff from back in that set, but let's hear his story. Rayav is a highly skilled and sought-after smith on the Plate of Kaladesh. He specializes in tools and equipment needed for precision tasks. His greatest invention and claim to fame is a gauntlet that combines multiple key tools with delicate automation. While he knew his gauntlet was something special, he struggled to get recognition for it. In a rather ingenious publicity stunt, Rayav made the designs for the gauntlet publicly available. He had confidence that no other smith could execute his extraordinarily complex design, and he was right. Custom orders came flooding in, and Rayav has never wanted for work ever since. Ooh, he tried to go open source, but the directions were too crap. I've heard that one before. Next up, Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. Orphaned as a baby, Kenshi Sakashima's prospects seemed uninspiring. He could take up a trade, find a wife, have a few children, and die, leaving behind a modest inheritance. Sakashima wanted more than his life could offer him. He wanted more than any one life could offer him. He became a master of masks, of makeup, of wigs. He disguised himself as a number of people and infiltrated all strata of Kamigawan society, both to enrich himself and to satisfy his curiosity. He studied under the master illusionist Shin-sen, learning to make his mind a blank scroll to become the role that he played. Or as they wrote it, since they never edited anything, to become to role he played. He infiltrated Ogre's strongholds, Kitsune's forests, and even the floating city of Soratami. It was all too easy for Sakashima. Only one challenge remained, to infiltrate the Kakuryō, the realm of the Kami. Good luck with that one. Next up we got Slurk, all ingesting. Driven only by instinct and hunger, Slurk consumes every living being in its path. An ancient ooze, it has devoured countless beings to the point that it has begun to lose its slime-like viscosity. The upper portions of its body, as it were, have begun to take the form of the creatures it has consumed. Limbs, faces, and other extremities have solidified, creating a truly nauseating being to behold. Slurk has recently taken up residence in a remote temple, eating all of its inhabitants and any supplicants who try to visit. Some argue that after consuming that many faithful, Slurk has become a holy object itself. Sure. Other people aren't interested in being eaten and steer very, very clear. Yeah, somebody should probably slay this thing at some point. I don't know what they're waiting for. Hell, I'll do it. What's the bounty? $10 and a free Taco John certificate? I'll do it. They got some dank breakfast. So next up we got Thalisse, Reverent Medium. So I take it she just lies and scams people out of their money while spouting off generic nonsense. Let's read it. Thalisse woke up in a graveyard with no memory of who she was or how she got there. Wow, I've never heard that storyline before. What great writing. All she remembered was her name. And her name? Biden. or Thalisse, she's not sure. She took a big blow to the head. It could be either. So she remembered her name, that she was safe, and that she was surrounded by friends. The swirling mists of spirits had encircled her. Each spirit whispered a story, a moment from their lives that meant everything to them. With no story of her own, Thalisse decided to spread the tales of the dead, who only wanted someone to listen. Now she travels from town to town, ringing her bells and spreading stories so unbelievable they almost have to be true. Okay, now we know it's Biden. Yes, I was at the pool with a corn pop and I got out my metal chain. I totally didn't steal this story from a member of the ACLU. Anyway, next up we have the greatest character. I have been waiting the entire spoiler season for this. It's Tago, the Goblin Weaponsmith. Let me just read the card so you get some context here. And look at the art too. It's very important. He's holding up a rock like this is the greatest invention that I have ever made. So he's the legendary creature Goblin Artificer. He's a 2/2 for 3. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a colorless equipment artifact token named Rock with equipped creature has, pay 1, tap equipped creature, sacrifice the rock, and this creature deals 2 damage to any target. And then it has equip 1. So this Goblin Artificer, and I use that term very loosely, has developed rock throwing technology. Wow! So with that in mind, let's jump into the lore. No one would have guessed that a seemingly ordinary skirk goblin would grow up to become the greatest inventor in the history of Dominaria. Oh, this is as good as I hoped. Togo or Tago or whatever, why do they do this to me? I don't know, Togo sounds cooler. So Togo experimented for many years trying to develop the ultimate weapon. The spear was a bust. It was too hard to figure out what end was which. Experiments with crossbows led to a series of foot injuries among the weapon testers. The design flaws inherent in double-bladed swords are well known. That's what they say. It cuts both ways. In a flash of inspiration, Togo invented the rock, the perfect weapon. Harder than a goblin's skull, it could be swung, thrown, or dropped from great height. The rock proved to be so successful that the Skirk Ridge had been completely destroyed by overmining. A testament to the enduring demand for this design classic. Oh yes, the classic rock. So yeah, clearly Togo's the coolest character in this entire set by far. But we do have Tormod, finally got him on a card. So during the time of the Dark, the city of Al-Sur suffered from a series of grave robberies. The Church of Tal conducted an inquisition to determine who was responsible. The Inquisitors traced the traffic in stolen corpses to an estate in the swampland east of the city. The estate's owned by a minor nobleman named Tormod, and it was guarded by a horde of the undead. Well, I mean, there's your dead giveaway. Pun very much intended. The Inquisitors encouraged a mob of peasants to storm the estate. That in itself is just fantastic. And Tormod was hanging from a tree within a few hours. I mean, you don't mess with the village people. Not only are they great at singing YMCA, but apparently they can take down undead like nobody's business. So some distant relatives living in Al-Sur inherited the estate and interred Tormod in the extravagant crypt that his undead minions had constructed. Apparently the village people didn't get them all. Some months later, the ghastly grave robberies resumed. The church authorities returned to Tormod's estate to find it abandoned. They prized open the lid, I kid you not, that's what they wrote, I'm sure they meant pride, of Tormod's coffin, only to find the grave empty. So he's a zombie wizard, and he likes clearing out graveyards. I mean, what more can you say? What more do you need? It's Tormod. You know what he's about. It's just like when I order the number 20 breakfast combo at Denny's or whatever, and they say, sir, this is meant to feed a family of 4 to 6 people. And I say, I know what I'm about, son. That's a Parks and Recreations joke. Anyway, next up we got Tuya Bear Claw. I love Bear Claws. They're tasty. Too bad Oktoberfest got canceled this year. Oh, and if you're not from Fat Germany 2.0, aka Wisconsin, a bear claw, aka an elephant ear, aka, I forgot what dumb Californians call it, but it's something dumb. It's just a giant ass donut that they cook right in front of your face. It's real spongy dough to soak up all that tasty oil, and then they like just run cinnamon, like brown sugar and granulated sugar on the outside and hand it to you, and they're like, here, enjoy your 5,000 calorie tactical calorie nuke. They're tasty. We also have chocolate-coated, fudge-dipped, or deep-fried cheesecake slices. Because it's basically like, oh no, it's cold out now, winter sucks. Screw it. Give me that cheesecake on a stick. So anyway, I bet Tuya Bear Claw is a little bit less interesting. There are none that Surak the Hunt Caller trusts more than Tuya Bear Claw. She's not actually going to give a bear claw to ya. Her name is just Tuya Bear Claw. It's a coincidence. So even when she was just Tuya, her skill at the hunt complemented Surak's... I keep wanting to call her Surakar, because that's a thing. No, it complemented Surak's in a way that kept all families fed. One day, when they were seeking Atarka's next meal, Tuya and her fighters stumbled upon a lone bear cub. The cub's mother had been slain by a hungry dragon, and it was left to fend for itself. Taking mercy, Tuya spared the cub's life and decided to try to tame it. At that age, that's not taming, that's raising it domesticated. Typical Seattle City idiots who don't know anything about what they're talking about. So anyway, Tuya succeeded in making the beast her companion and began to ride it into battle. On the back of her bear, she was unstoppable. As the hubris of taking the name Dragonclaw is punishable by death, Tuya was instead bequeathed the name Bear Claw, because bear claws are tasty. And finally, the last one on this lore adventure is Wyleth, Soul of Steel, another character who I know nothing about, but they did just kind of make up some of these. Or they were referenced in, one card or one line in one book or something. So the swordsman Wyleth's life changed forever when a mysterious object streaked through the sky and crashed into the mountains near his home. While everyone else hung back in fear, Wyleth alone climbed up the mountain where he discovered a sword in the midst of the giant crater. When he picked it up, blazing sigils appeared on his arms, mirroring the design worked into the blade's hilt. From then on, the sword was bound to him, capable of being summoned into his hands from anywhere, no matter how far the distance. So he's literally Godric Gryffindor. All right. Wyleth had always been a student of the blade, seeking to learn new styles and master new skills. Wielding this mysterious weapon, he believes he can discover secrets of swordsmanship that no one else has ever discovered. With a world full of learning opportunities before him, Wyleth relishes every chance to head into the fray. So found magic sword, got powerful. All right. I mean, I've been saying a couple this time around are kind of generic. They're kind of just like, yeah, we've heard that. Yeah, that's a comic book cliche. Yeah, that's a D&D cliche. Yeah, that's an old dumb 80s movie cliche. But a lot of these were really cool. I mean, to finally figure out who Tormod was and his history in just 2 paragraphs, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And you guys seem to love this series too. So, hey, leave a big old like on it if you absolutely loved the lore coverage. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you guys next video.